He's just standing there, menacingly!
Hello everyone, it's that time of year again where we experience some spooky stuff. Now me personally, I don't like being scared. But when I heard that Silent Hill 2 was getting a remake, I thought I might as well try it as a Halloween type special for the channel. That and because I never played the original, because when it came out I was only 1 year old. I don't think you want a baby playing Silent Hill. Now, I never knew much about the Silent Hill series until playing through the remake over this past week. So for me to review this game is going to be difficult because I can honestly say that I'm probably not going to scratch the surface on everything that is good here. The atmosphere, the story, just the general uncomfortable vibe I get whenever I boot up this game. Personally, I love psychological horror. From movies to video games, I've always been drawn to stories that mess with your mind and make you question what is real and what isn't. And Silent Hill 2 nails that perfectly. Every step feels like you're teetering on the edge of sanity, with the fog-covered streets and the eerie soundtrack just adding layers of dread. What stands out the most is how the game doesn't rely on cheap jump scares. It's the slow, creeping sense of unease that builds over time. It gets under your skin in a way that lingers long after you turned off the game. Like, dude, I can't even tell you how many times I've been checking corners around my place just waiting for one of these fucks to jump out at me. And I honestly feel so thankful that my generation, the bunch of brain rotted trolls we are, can finally experience a game like this in a modern way. And I know I'm probably gonna say something wrong in this video and have one of the hardcore Silent Hill veterans comment. And I mean, I guess that's fair because this game is very important to them, both as a nostalgic and simply as a beautiful work of art. What I knew about Silent Hill 2 before playing was that its story was sad compared to all the other Silent Hill installments. And they were not kidding. It's kind of weird because when I prepped for this game, I watched a whole walkthrough on Silent Hill 1. You know, Harry Mason trying to find his daughter because of a cult and a weird new god thing. You already know the story, I don't have to explain it. But like I said, I never played Silent Hill 2, so I mean, yeah, but I don't mind it, honestly. I've always enjoyed anthology-styled storytelling. So, to give a brief intro to the story here, you play as James Sunderland, a regular depressed office worker who may or may not be a little crazy. Reason why James is at Silent Hill is because he got a letter from his wife Mary saying that she's at Silent Hill. The only problem being is that she died 3 years ago. But that's not important. As things progress, everything gets very weird very quickly, and in summary, that's pretty much the whole game.
Hello?
This is Phil from the Small Wiener Club. Sorry to get back to you so late. I just finished reviewing your application and information you sent in, but I am sorry to say that I don't think I can allow you to join our group. From what I'm looking at, your wiener is massive.
Silent Hill 2's story is a sad one. And not in a sense where you'll be crying at the end like Red Dead 2, but sad like you'll feel sorry for every single character here. Except Eddie, fuck that guy. So remember when I said that James may or may not be crazy? Yeah, Silent Hill makes that question more present as you progress throughout the game. From the get-go, you don't know much about James other than through the subtext of the letter he received from Mary, where it says that Mary is there in Silent Hill waiting for him. So logically, he fights through literal hell just to find her. But let's not get ahead of ourselves here. The more James walks towards the inevitable, the more fog really starts to surround him.
Hello, I am Mr. Beast. The fog is coming. The fog is coming.
Eventually, you approach this well where there's a red square inside. What does it mean? I don't fucking know, dude. I just saved my game there. Fuck. Anyway, along the way, you meet this girl. Her name is Angela. And go figure, she's here to find someone else close to her too. So with that, they both agree to go their separate ways, and James goes on to venture to the town of Silent Hill, which is not all what it seems.
What the fuck?
After dealing with that horrific creature that'll never escape my memories, James continues through the town. Some small puzzle solving later, James arrives at the Woodside Apartments, where James finds a flashlight, gets scared, and finds this little shit.
Wait! Damn it.
Some more puzzle solving later, and James finds this degenerate.
Hey, who's there? It wasn't me.
This fat fuck is Eddie. Conveniently, Eddie was also called out to this town for one reason or another, attached to some type of guilt. Ooh, foreshadowing! Ooh. Later on, James makes it to room 201, where, yeah, after that absolutely traumatic experience, James just goes through a weird random door. But once James enters this door, things get a little strange. There's rust, mold, and just general grossness throughout this place. This place being the other world, where it's almost identical to the place you were just at, just more creepy. And everything wants to kill you.
Brother,
But within this world, you meet Angela again, and it starts to become a little clearer what kind of trauma she's dealing with. Angela has clearly dealt with some traumatic experiences involving her father or brother in her past, and she's likely sought comfort in her mother, which explains why she's looking for her in Silent Hill. Some more puzzle solving later, and James finds the exit to the apartment complex. Oh fuck. After dealing with Pyramid Head, James finally makes it back to regular Silent Hill, as regular as it can get, I guess. Here he sees this little shit again, who mentions Mary before slipping away. This gives James a sense of purpose, making him feel not so crazy since someone else knows of Mary and that she just might still be alive somewhere in Silent Hill. Further on, James goes to that special place Mary mentioned in her letter, only to find...
No. You're not.
Do I look like your girlfriend?
This is Maria. She looks almost exactly like Mary, but she's not. She's dressed like your edgy cousin who never grew out of her Hot Topic phase and is clingy as fuck.
Can you let me in?
And something's fishy about her, as if she's not quite real in a sense. But James is like, she's hot, so it's fine. Some more scavenging and scaring the piss out of Maria later, James goes into a movie theater to find Eddie. Again, here is where you can kind of get more of an insight to Eddie, and it's like you're kind of seeing him for all he's worth. He's definitely not better than when you first saw him, but he does let you know that little girl's name, Laura. So, ignoring Eddie's melted ice cream filled hands, James continues deeper into Silent Hill until he ends up here. James solves even more puzzles, Maria takes a nap, and... this leads James to find Laura, who talks about a letter in the other room. The letter's from Mary, so James, being the brave yet naive person he is, goes into the room willingly, only to be locked out by Laura. And it's a pretty big room, so you know what that means. Boss fight time. Hey, yo! After killing the Gok Gok 9000, James ends back up in the other world where, you guessed it, more puzzle solving happens. Maria tracks you down, you continue through the hospital, and the big Pyramid Head McGee returns. And then Maria fucking dies. Anyway, he makes it out of the hospital and back into the streets of Silent Hill. I'm not gonna lie, this has to be one of the most anxiety-inducing areas of the game because god damn is it horrifying. Some jump scares later, James finds Angela. She goes schizo, he finds a key and goes to...
I want to go home.
After a very long staircase, James finds a hole and... you already know the deal here. Where James ends up conveniently in the same room as Eddie, who, may or may not have killed a person. It's at this point in the game where James starts to realize that Eddie is a little too comfortable talking about murder. Think of Eddie as the guy that you really do not want to sit next to on the bus. Anyway, you know the drill by now. Some puzzle solving later, in this prison full of monsters and some random hole jumping and venturing through some weird hallways, James finds Angela. Again, leading James to probably fight one of the most disturbingly visceral enemies you could possibly imagine for a victim of SA. Some shotgun shells later, and James kills the creature, and Angela... some weird cutscenes later, and a bunch of dialogue that explains Angela's backstory that you can probably find in a better video than this, James ends up in the Labyrinth. A fucking maze of rooms and puzzles that had me stuck for 2 hours! Oh, and Maria's alive again. Yay. Some more puzzle solving later, and she's dead. Again. Okay. Back into the main room where the labyrinth begins, James picks up the Pyramid Head sword and parts the demonic red sea of finger lady things. It's actually honestly really cool. Until eventually, you guessed it, he runs into Eddie. He is completely unhinged at this point. Silent Hill has officially broken him, and the reason why being that he had a difficult upbringing filled with bullying and hazing. It led Eddie to eventually kill a man's dog and then wounding the man himself. Now, I don't know about you, but I have a dog, and when I found out that this fuck killed one and then proceeds to gloat about it, I gotta handle business. After that satisfying interaction, James makes it to a dock, jumps on a little boat, gets an achievement, and arrives at Lakeview Hotel, the place where James and his late wife Mary actually stayed at during one of their vacations years back. In my opinion, Lakeview Hotel is about reflection because it's here where Silent Hill 2's plot twist happens. After solving a ridiculously long puzzle, James eventually finds the tape he recorded with his wife all those years ago. And what James sees on the tape is up to the player's actions in the game leading up to this point, which is why it's important we talked about the endings. All 8 of them. But before we get into that, let's wrap up Laura's and Angela's story. See, James actually meets Laura at the hotel and is given a letter that was from Mary, but the envelope is empty. At this point, James' goal here is to find that letter for the sake of finding out the truth, if she's actually still alive. Angela, on the other hand, has a much more darker ending to her story. No matter what ending the player gets, James will find Angela in this burning room where she seals her own fate. See, Angela is interesting to me because her story arc in Silent Hill 2 represents how you can't save people from themselves. Whether it be the way they were born or their environmental upbringing, trauma affects people differently. If it's not clear by now, Angela was SA'd by her father and brother, and whenever she confided in her mother, she did nothing about it. And in the end, she doesn't find the person she was looking for, her mama, just like she didn't find that loving compassion all those years ago. And so it's to be understood that in this cutscene, Angela takes her own life by walking into the flames. Anyway, there are 8 endings in total in this remake, 6 being from the original game, and 2 being new. You got the dog and UFO endings, of course. These endings are obviously joke endings, so don't take anything too seriously here. The dog is not the director of Silent Hill, alright? Get that out of your head. Oh, and James speaks Japanese now, I guess? And the UFO ending is just confusing. It requires an item called the blue gem, and you have to inspect it in certain areas of the game, and upon completion he's abducted by aliens to where the game turns into one of those silent picture films, and modern James meets OG James, and yeah. What the f— Now for the real endings. The videotape in almost all endings reminds James that he killed his wife. Yeah, but the certain endings you get changes depending on what you, the player, do throughout the story. In the leave ending, James goes, alright, time to stop murdering people and start fresh. He leaves the town with Laura because what's more interesting than adopting a kid right after discovering you killed your wife? In the in-water ending, James pulls a Romeo and Juliet and decides that life just isn't worth living anymore without Mary, and decides to drive his car into Toluca Lake. In the Maria ending, James thinks, you know what? Maria's not so bad. They ride off into the sunset until Maria starts coughing, and James just gives the most condescending line here.
Better do something about that cough.
Dumb bitch.
And then there's the rebirth ending, where James decides to perform some ancient Silent Hill voodoo magic to bring Mary back from the dead, because that's obviously the healthiest way to deal with grief. Those are all the OG endings, so nothing new here. I personally got the in-water ending my first playthrough, and it was very depressing to say the least. But the 2 new endings here are actually pretty interesting. The bliss ending and the stillness ending. The bliss ending involves James drinking some concoction of drugs he found on the street. Think of it as LSD for Silent Hill. And when James drinks this item, instead of getting the tape that jogs his memory of him killing his fucking wife, you actually get a tape of Mary and James embracing each other as a loving couple. And right after that, the game's camera cuts to the room where James sat down to watch the tape. Only he's gone. Why? Well, there's a theory going around that due to the hallucinogenic properties of White Claudia, he sees what he wants to see in the tape. A version of the tape that will give him bliss. Ooh, it's like the name of the ending. Ooh. As to why he's no longer in the room, I don't know. Anyway, the Stillness ending is almost like the In Water ending, but instead of talking to himself, he's talking to a hallucination of Mary in the back seat, alive and well. To get this ending, you need to find a bunch of key items throughout the game and finish the game as normal. So really think of this ending as a narrative where things go from James is sad to James is really fucking sad. Silent Hill 2 is definitely one of the saddest games out there, and I'm really glad that I got the chance to play it now, because if I'm being honest, I was never gonna dust off an old PS2 and dive into the original at this point. There's something oddly immersive about experiencing this kind of retro-inspired horror with modern visuals. It's like opening a time capsule that reeks of emotional trauma and fog. And it's really not just me. I've seen all the positive feedback this game is getting, and I really think a lot of players appreciate what Bloober Team has done here. They managed to preserve that heavy, depressing vibe while giving it a fresh coat of paint that makes it feel accessible for new players and returning players alike. It's rare to see a game hit that sweet spot between honoring the past and staying relevant today, but they pulled it off. But honestly, I want to know what you think. Of all the endings, which one is your favorite? And does it live up to the OG game standards? And if these two new endings fit the overall narrative of Silent Hill 2? I'm gonna be in the comments for the first 24 hours of this video's upload date, so I'd love to know your thoughts on this game and if this video made you laugh or do that weird exhale out of your nose. You know what I'm talking about. Also, the combat is pretty friggin' amazing.
Hey man, you need to sit your motherfucking ass down.
The